Our guest speaker today is the Reverend Dr. Randolph Becker. Randy grew up in the Universalist Unitarian congregation in Utica, New York. His education includes a BA in Physics and Sociology from Brandeis University, a Doctorate of Ministry from Meadville Lombard's Theological School, and a PhD in Religious Education from New York University. He has been an ordained and fellowshipped Unitarian Universalist minister since 1972, with credentials in both parish and religious education ministries, serving congregations in Wisconsin, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Long Island, New York, Virginia, Illinois, and in Key West. In retirement, he has become a published author of mystery and travel books. Randy lives in Key West with his wife, Alyssa Bishop Becker, a nationally recognized credentialed professional counselor with a specialty in grief and loss, and author of Loss and Growth, The Grief Spiral. Randy is a survivor of COVID-19 and brother to UU Amherst member Bruce Becker. Welcome, Randy, and thank you.
And now, let us light our chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Dr. Randy Becker, and I'll be your guest speaker this morning. I'm a product of upstate New York, grew up in the Universalist Unitarian Church in Utica, and still spend time in the summers up near Utica. But I live most of the year now at the southernmost point of the continental United States in Key West. For the past 5 decades, I've served as minister to congregations and groups of congregations all over the Midwest and East. But now in retirement, I'm enjoying myself writing mystery novels and visiting with various congregations, both in person and virtually. I invite you this morning to join with me. Join with me at a time where we put aside all the busyness and even the nastiness of the world and come together around shared values and shared vision. Come together in a spirit of connectedness and cooperation. Come. In the words and the music, in the silence and the speech, may we find those things that enlighten our minds, encourage our hearts, and bind us together as a congregation. May we be here with and for each other in the spirit of what we call our time of worship. May it be so for each and for all of us.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here shadows, let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song.
We all have stories about our growing up. And often those stories talk about significant points in our development. It may be when we took our first step, or maybe it's when we said our first word. Maybe it's when we sat up for the first time. Do you remember stories that were told about you as you developed, about first steps, or sitting up, or first words? Well, here's a story for this morning. This weekend, many of us are aware of the indigenous people and First Nations who were here on this continent before many of our immigrant and slave ancestors appeared. In their honor, this story by Roseanne Tahi and Nancy Bow Flood, illustrated by Jonathan Nelson. Baby, we wait, watching, tickling, smiling. When will we hear your very first laugh? Baby, you nap in your crib. Grandmother, your Nimasani, tucks you under a Pendleton blanket. In your skyscraper home in the big busy city. All week long, Papa, your Nazis, works welding buildings of steel, while Mama is teaching children at school. Soon you wiggle and squirm, eyes open awake. You start to smile, but then such a frown. You are hungry. Smells from the kitchen tickle your nose. Big sister, you're naughty, sprinkles salt cedar ash in the bubbling blue cornmeal mash. Eat, little baby. Fill up your tummy. Then will you laugh? Navajo baby, Dina Awi. You often visit your parents on the Navajo Nation. From your cradle board in the shade of a pinyon, you watch while your Nima, your mama, weaves bluebirds and thrushes into her tree of life rug. Ribbons of buckskin hold you snug, so your legs grow strong and your back straight. Caw, caw. Look, little baby, how raven teases, swoops low, then soars high. Your mouth opens wide, it stretches. A smile? Oh no, it's a sleepy pink yawn. You ride on a horse across the red mesa, snuggled up in grandmother's arms. She shows you her sheep while tickling your chin. You grin. Uh-oh, dogs bark, coyotes yip and howl. Little fingers curl around grandmother's hand. Your lips turn down. What a scowl. Grandmother kisses your cheeks and tears. She points to the windmill, bringing up water for cows and their calves. You reach toward the silver blades spinning. Whoosh! Grandfather, your chili, splashes water sparkling with sunshine. You squeal, legs kicking. Laugh, little one. But not even a smile. Oh, baby, we wait, we wonder, when will you laugh? Tonight after napping you wake, stretch and look, not tired, not hungry, not scared. Big brother, your niñe, making silly faces. Sister plays her Navajo flute. Papa tickles your tummy and toes. Mama sings with the sunset. Your eyes open wide, tiny lips quiver and turn into a smile. You look around. Grandfather holds you up high. Grandmother whispers a corn pollen prayer. Oh, baby,
Your arms wave, your smile grows big, still bigger. Like babies everywhere, long ago and today, you laugh. Grandparents nod, sisters giggle, brother jumps, mama and papa clap, everyone cheers. Oh, baby, yes, we welcome you, Navajo baby, into your family, into our clans. That was First Laugh, Welcome, Baby, a story about a tradition out of our First Nations heritage, about how a baby becomes a person and a part of the community when it is able to laugh.
Let me tell you a story about myself and about religion. As I said, I grew up in the Universalist Unitarian Church of the Reconciliation in Utica, New York. That's its old building in the background. They're now in a more modern facility, but that's the one I grew up in. And one of the things I know I inherited from those days was everything I learned in Sunday school. I went through all the FAS Beacon curriculum courses, all the study of religion and ethics and behavior. And I learned along the way that religion was founded upon two competing experiences of humanity. On the one hand were those experiences of amazing awe, looking at the sunset and the sunrise, seeing the circling moon above us, watching the earth regenerate each year, to seeing the birth of animals and of humans, and of all the joy of connectedness. On the other hand, however, there were the fears, the mighty lightning storms, the earthquakes, the floods, all the things of pestilence and infection that might haunt a person's life. And religion then grew up out of some of that sense of both, of awe and of fear. But over time, in general, the fears won out. It was out of this fearful side of religion that most of the practices and ideas of the religions of antiquity grew. The whole concept that one might need to practice sacrifices to somehow appease the gods so that terrible things wouldn't happen. The story of religion from its founding, even with the appeal to the side of awe, very often also included an appeal to the fearsome and fearful side of life. And that somehow the role of religion was to get between the poor people full of their fears and the mighty power of some kind of divinity. As time went on, those gods, which were often in the earliest days planted in nature and in objects of all kinds, were replaced with individual beings, or ultimately with a single being that also needed those sacrifices. Religion became the expression of human reaction to the fears they held in relation to a single entity supposedly of ultimate power. And the center of that relationship would be the practice of religion through some kind of powerful figure. A word we now often use is priest or priestess, someone who held a special relationship to the divine and could mediate between human beings and that awesome but also fearsome force. Religion became the mediation between humanity and divinity. Over time, there always arose prophets and seers who talked about a different way of seeing things. Certainly one of those was the ancient prophet of Galilee, who we now call Jesus, who talked about a different approach to what the meaning of being religious and being spiritual was. But through the intimidation of the Roman Empire and the needs in the declining years of that empire, that message of Jesus became just a continuation of the old message, the message of needing sacrifice, the idea that somehow divinity was afar, only visited to us in terrible ways, and that we needed to mediate that the reason to gather in religious community was to somehow deal with an angry, vengeful God that could only be approached through the works of priests and priestesses who had the magic and the ability to turn sacrifice into demand. But there came along the way, especially going into the period of the Enlightenment, a different understanding, an understanding about the different nature of religious community. We're about to hear a hymn to the music of Sir Hubert Parry and the words of William Blake that expresses some of that transition in which the question is not where is God, but where in the human community we might experience the divine message, not as a threat, but as a liberation. Let's enjoy this piece, Jerusalem.
England's mountains me.
In the shorthand history of religion, we have this event pictured back here of Luther nailing up the 95 Theses upon the door of the church, along with many other messages that were already there. That's how people communicated. They didn't have Instagram, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't even have email, hard to believe but true. They didn't even have Zoom to get together, or YouTube. But they did have the door of the local church. And that's where that monk, Martin Luther, chose to put up his 95 ideas about what was wrong with the church. And in that moment, a movement began. But to tie that movement totally to Luther's actions would be to make a mistake, because he was only one among many who were questioning that traditional ancient role of religion and the meaning of the gathered community. He was only one among many who began to ask questions about what's the point of being religion? What's the point of being in a congregation? What's the point of coming together? Of course, over the years, in English language at least, his act of protest became the word by which those new thoughts became known, hence the Protestant movement. But in fact, the wider movement beyond Luther was saying much more and many different things. And it was in a way that is a misnomer, that we are part of a Protestant tradition, even though lately Unitarian Universalism has gone off on its own route that is many-rooted. But in its Protestant roots, it is misnamed. Because what was being said by the people in those days who were thinking about the meaning of religion was that the gathered community was the power, and not the priest or the priestess or even the distant divinity, but rather the power of the people. Those various voices said in many different ways that they came to proclaim a different vision of religion. They came to proclaim a message that it was what we as people gathered together do that makes the difference. That it's by our actions, it's by our relationships, it's by the various ways we are together that we become powerful as a spiritual force. That it's not our interactions with a divinity that defines us. It is not our interactions with some far-off God that is the moment of understanding for us, but rather that it's how we are with each other and with the others in our community beyond the church, and even with the stranger that we are defined. That the message of religion, recaptured from fear and imbued once more with the concept of awe, says that when we come together, it is to understand the awesome power that we as human beings, in relation to all sentient beings, in relation to all inanimate objects, in relation to all knowing, in relation to all acting, have our most powerful moment. We became a tradition of proclamation, that we are the proclaimers, that it's not about dealing with fear, and it's not about somehow giving power over to a select few, that in fact it's not even about that relationship to whatever there is beyond this immediate existence, but rather it is what we as community do in this existence. It's what we together can do. The possibility to rise above the ordinary and become something more because of our relationships. Together, we can fly.
Hush the noise from outside, wipe the tears from your eyes. Gaze up towards the rising sun. Be yourself, you have already won. Open up your heart, show the beauty inside. The beauty lifts the ones like the moon will lift the tide. So put your hand in mine, we'll reach up for the sky. A world of dreams awaits us there, so we'll set our sights on high. Together we can fly, take a ride along the breeze. We'll whisper to the clouds, we'll dance among the trees. Together we can fly, look down from up above, to a world that's filled with peace and happiness and love. We'll start just you and me, a simple family. I'll be yours and you'll be mine. Our bond will stand the test of time. When you feel alone, remember, dear, this song. Just close your eyes, there's no surprise. The heart will take you home. So put your hand in mine, we'll reach up for the sky. A world of dreams awaits us there, so we'll set our sights on high. Together we can fly, take a ride along the breeze. We'll whisper to the clouds, we'll dance among the trees. Together we can fly, look down from up above, to a world that's filled with peace and happiness and love. So put your hand in mine, we'll reach up for the sky. A world of dreams awaits us there, so we'll set our sights on high. Together we can fly, take a ride along the breeze. We'll whisper to the clouds, we'll dance among the trees. Together we can fly, look down from up above, to a world that's filled with peace and happiness and
And so it is that we gather together as community, as this congregation, as this coming together of individual lives. But the question always is, to what end? Why are we together? Why do we now see in our proclaimed faith that the power of religion is about the people that come together, rather than any appeasement of a god or any form of sacrifice, or even more than any great fear? Why do we come together? Let me tell you a story out of my recent history, because I think it illustrates why we come together. Toward the end of August, I went into hospital because I was diagnosed with COVID-19. And on the second day in hospital, as I lay in my bed, I reached a low point in my life. I was certainly filled with some fears. I was certainly not feeling well. In fact, feeling the worst I think I have ever felt. But coming to me in so many different ways, some of it electronic, some of it by way of phone calls, some of it by just a sense and a presence, I realized I was not alone. And in that struggle against this strange little small virus, I could feel the power of the community that surrounded me, the power of the community that cared about me, that cared for me, the power of the community that held me within it. And that community was not just one congregation
or one set of neighbors back home, or one place I'd lived before, but it was the sum total of all of that, all coming together to be with me in a silent cloud of witness that surrounded me with love, with empathy and sympathy, with compassion, with care, with prayer, with thought, with energy, with everything in whatever way all those people could give to me. I could feel it. And it was transformative. The power of people coming together, gathered in their best meaning and understanding, coming together to be there for all those who were there with them and all they cared about, and even the people they didn't know, but those in the world who were needing their energy and care at that moment. I was uplifted. I was transformed. I was held in the power of community. And that's what I think we discover about religion, that it's not about our fears, that it's not about some divinity at a distance or whatever sacrifices we can make, but it's about this proclaimed power of community to make a difference, to hold each and every one we know, and even those we don't know, within the power of that community, so that no one ever needs to feel alone, that no one ever has to feel at a distance from meaning, that no one ever has to think that their life has reached a dead end, that no one is beyond the gathering arms and understanding of community. And so this was my experience, and I share it with you as the meaning of what religion is to us ultimately. We invested in many symbols. We have flaming chalices. We have hymns we sing together. We have so many different ways that we embody it. But ultimately, the true embodiment is about what we are as the gathered body of a congregation, of community, of a caring community, of a loving community, of an inclusive community, of a visionary community, of a community that can make a difference in the world. That is what we are called to be. So that people lying in hospital, and people being in poverty, and people marching in the streets, and people alone in their lives feeling shut off, and that people everywhere feel the presence of we together, here and everywhere. That, to me, is the meaning of religion, that people coming together can empower themselves to empower others to feel the majesty and wonder and possibility and vision of a larger world. In that spirit, we are a true congregation of faith. Blessed be.
Our
extinguish our chalice. We extinguish his flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you for joining us in worship today. Please see the credits at the end of this service for information about the music and other worship elements. And do take a moment to visit our website, uumherst.org, and click on the giving link, or text your gift to 833-987-1968.
Rejoice in the